almost 66 hectares or 163 acres. Herculaneum was a third of that size. Pompeii had around 12,000 to 15,000 people, with 4,000 to 5,000 at Herculaneum. Pompeii was busier with administrative, financial and commercial interests of regional importance. There were slaves, merchants and soldiers from other parts of the Roman Empire. The rich were easy to spot by their fine clothing and accompanying servants. Slaves and the free poor were readily recognisable by appearance, such as the simple short tunics that they wore, indicating menial or manual occupations. It was a young population, with most people in their 20s to 40s, and under 10s making up 1 in 5 of the population. Another feature of the human landscape was the visible presence of women. In streets, shops and public areas, women mingled freely with men, unthinkable in some other cultures, and they played a prominent role in the running of the home. Even more surprising was the huge number of ex-slaves, perhaps over half of the population. Although Pompeii and Herculaneum were destroyed in an extraordinary way, they were ordinary cities, representative of many others. It is this ordinariness that makes them so important, for they give us an unparalleled glimpse into life in the average Roman home. Bricks and mortar. Some Romans loved to flaunt their wealth and status through the grandeur of their homes. And here we have a larger Roman home which boasted a dining room, which is called a triclinium, like this 1st century AD example discovered in Herculaneum. Let me show you a little bit closer if I can. There we go. Roman homes varied from single-roomed apartments to multi-roomed mansions. The classic house, the rectangular 2-storied dom monotonous diets of bread, oil, leeks, onions and cheese with fish and sausages as treats, but a train in Herculaneum, serving both poor and rich houses, produced vegetables including beans, olives and lentils, together with fruit and nuts such as fig, date, apple and grape and hazelnut. Seafood included scallops, mussels and sea urchins, alongside fish such as sardine, eel and anchovy. Chicken, sheep and pig bones were also found, as were seeds of dill, coriander, mint and black peppercorns imported from India, an echo of rich sauces. The extended family, a posse of slaves, was an essential cog in the well-run Roman household. This fresco painting in the house of Marcus Lucretius Frento depicts a domestic scene in Pompeii. Each domus housed a familia. More than family, this Latin word meant a household of people linked by blood and marriage. This included the dominus, his wife and their children, but also members of the extended family, as well as slaves and ex-slaves, freedmen. Larger households probably contained dozens of people, with a high proportion of slaves and freedmen. Slaves were indispensable to daily life. Some were acquired through auctions, while others, verni, were born to slaves in the home and were brought up there. Slaves benefited from belonging to the household and probably had more comfortable lives than many poorer, freeborn citizens. Some slaves had particular skills, such as cooking, hairdressing or gardening, but many worked generally at whatever was required. They bustled in and about, tending to the household's daily needs. Women were an integral part of all areas of the home, which was certainly not the case in every ancient culture. The writer Cornelius Nepos wrote, "Matrona versatur in medio." The lady of the house is at the centre of things. From the wet nurse in the cubiculum and the maid weaving in the atrium to the cook in the kitchen, the same was true for all women in the house. In the home, Cottage industries. Many Pompeians ran businesses from home, and some made a fortune in the process. Here we have a painted plaster from 1st century AD Pompeii showing a baker distributing bread. There we go. Some homes hosted businesses. Many shops, workshops and bars were built into the fronts of even the wealthiest houses, and clearly no stigma was attached to commercial premises. They are instantly recognisable by their wide entrances, masonry counters with inset jars and staircases leading up to living quarters. Businesses were a useful source of income to homeowners through takings and rents, but were run by slaves and freedmen. Shops sold local foodstuffs and goods often made on the premises, as well as merchandise from all over the empire, including luxuries such as silk, perfumes and spices, lamps and glass vessels. Businessmen could make massive fortunes. One man who did just that was the fish sauce magnate Aulus Umbricius Scaurus, owner of a mansion in western Pompeii, who put mosaics showing his fish sauce bottles into the floor. and sex. The Romans were fairly comfortable with nudity and sexual images and considered the phallus a lucky charm. Many frescoes show couples making love, and some were found on open display in gardens rather than in bedrooms or brothels. Slaves are frequently present in these scenes, reflecting the Romans' very different ideas of privacy. More disturbingly, it reminds us that some slaves were unwilling participants rather than mere attendants. In addition to these explicit depictions of human sex and love, there were representations of the gods and other supernatural beings who influenced the love lives of mortals, such as Bacchus and his followers. Venus, goddess of love and beauty and patroness of Pompeii, ruled the hearts of gods and men, but not always happily. I want to break Venus's ribs with sticks, scribbled one on Lucky in Love Pompeii. Cubicula were generally dark, so were lit by oil lamps of terracotta and bronze. The writer, Marshall, gives a voice to such a lamp. I'm the nice lamp who knows all about your bed. Do what you fancy, I won't say a word. And in this 1st century AD Pompeian fresco we've got Mars and the not universally popular Venus. Beauty and the Beasts. Pompeians took their interior design very seriously, as the finest Roman frescoes ever discovered prove. Roman decorative styles changed through circumstance and fashion, and the chronological and stylistic diversity found in the cities is important. Poor homes, smaller apartments and rooms such as kitchens and toilets had plain or simply painted walls and beaten earth or tile and concrete floors. In wealthy homes, most rooms were finely decorated in a unity of floor, walls and ceiling. Plasterers, painters and mosaicists collaborated in workshops of vision eye. Recurring pictures and motifs indicate they worked from copybooks or catalogues. Floors were of crushed brick and tile in mortar, signinium, or of mosaic pattern surfaces made of small cubes, tesserae, of stone and glass. A detailed mosaic panel emblema was an indicator of greater refinement. Ceilings of plaster or covered wood were brightly painted. Walls could be decorated with wall mosaics, marble, veneering or decorative panels. But wall paintings, frescoes, were the main feature, painted onto plaster that was wet or fresh, fresco in Italian. just